The senator from Tennessee.
I want to say to the senator from Iowa how much I appreciate working with him. We were talking yesterday, and he told me, and I think I have these facts about right, that our committee in this Congress has reported 17 bills that have passed the Senate and 10 that have become law, which I suspect exceeds that of any other committee. And as our hearing this morning on minimum wage shows, it's not because we always agree with each other all the time. I mean, we probably have the most ideologically split committee in the Congress by party, but we get a lot done, and that's due in great measure to the way the senator from Iowa leads the committee, and I appreciate that very much. And I'll have more to say about Senator Burr and Senator Mikulski in a few moments, because they're the real. They've done the yeoman's work on this. They're the leaders of this effort. They've immersed themselves in it for the last 2 years. They brought it to a position that was, which convinced everybody on a committee it was time to move ahead. But that's not where we were when we started. We had lots of differences of opinions, and we came to a conclusion that they'll be explaining to in detail. So the way we'll proceed today is this. After my remarks, Senator Mikulski and Senator Burr will step up and begin to manage the bill. Senator Harkin and I will be here. We're continuing right through the afternoon. We hope that senators will bring their amendments to the floor. What we're hoping to do is have a debate about the Child Care Development Block Grant. And we're hoping to have amendments about it. And we will have votes on those amendments. And it's not our desire to pick this Democratic amendment or this Republican amendment. If you have an amendment on the Child Care Development Block Grant that's related to the bill, please bring it over and talk with Senator Burr, Senator Mikulski, Senator Harkin, or me, and we'll start lining them up, and there'll be time for debate, and there'll be a vote, and it'll be considered. And our hope is to have votes this afternoon, votes tomorrow morning, to let senators know that there won't be votes tonight so they can plan their schedules. Senator Burr will talk more about that, and a time for attempting to conclude the bill tomorrow. That's our goal. That's the way the Senate traditionally has worked, and it's the way we hope it works today. Now, since Senator Mikulski, the senator from Maryland, the senator from North Carolina have done the principal amount of work on the bill, I see no need for me to go through the details of the bill. I think they're better equipped to do that and prepared to do that. So let me try to put the whole effort in perspective before I step down and step aside and Senator Mikulski and Senator Burr step up. During World War II, there are a great many mothers, women, who took jobs outside the home. That was different. In our agricultural society, families worked together. As the industrial society in America developed during the 20th century, men largely went away from home to work, and women mostly worked at home. But in World War II, something different happened. Many of the men were overseas fighting. There was a lot of work to be done at home, and so women took jobs in the factories that they didn't have before. And that produced a new phenomenon in the American society, which was called worksite daycare. Someone had to take care of the children. And in many cases, companies employing large numbers of women during World War II provided sites at the workplace so that mothers could bring their children while they worked. Then after the war was over, things went back to the way they were before, and most American women worked at home. That began to change probably in the 70s, the 1970s. It's probably fair to say that the greatest social change in our country over the last 40 years has been the gradual and steady phenomenon of women in the workplace outside the home and the adjustments that our society has made to that. I was lucky. I had an early head start in the little town of Maryville, Tennessee, where I grew up at the edge of the Smoky Mountains. My mother had one of the 2 preschool education programs. She had it in a garage, converted garage in her backyard. She had been trained in Kansas and in the settlement house in Chicago. And she had, it's hard for me today to imagine how she could do this, but she had 25 3- and 4-year-olds in the morning and 25 5-year-olds in the afternoon. That was Mrs. Alexander's preschool, which we call the Institution of Lower Learning. She had nowhere else to put me, so I became, I guess, the first United States Senator to have 5 years of kindergarten, which I probably needed. But it gave me a head start, and it gave me the understanding of what Senator Harkin said earlier, that research then even, but especially now, shows that the brain develops at least from the moment of conception, and that all of the influence around an infant even are important to that person's development over a long period of time. And most parents who understand that want to make sure that they are with the child at a very early age, stimulating that child, or that if they can't be for some period of time, for some reason, that someone else is. So along with the changing role of women in the workforce came the idea of more childcare. I remember in 1986, I was governor of Tennessee, and the head of our Human Services Division, a woman named Marguerite Salee, now Marguerite Kondracki, came to me, and she proposed that I ask the businesses in Tennessee to create 1,000 worksite daycare places. And I was kind of taken aback by that because I didn't understand the need for it and didn't think the businesses would do it voluntarily. Well, we did that, and we got twice as many worksite daycare places as were asked for. It was good for businesses to do, and there's plenty of demand for it from the parents who had to take their children to work. Then in the next year, I was out of a job. I was through with my time as governor, and so was Marguerite. And along with Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan, and a couple of others, my wife and Brad Martin, we founded a company called Corporate Childcare, which provided worksite daycare places. After about 10 years, it merged with its major competitor, Bright Horizons, and they became what is today the largest provider of worksite daycare in the world, as companies have realized the importance of worksite daycare. But not all mothers can send their children, or fathers can send their children to Bright Horizons while they work. And so there came to be a recognition that there needed to be some response by the federal government. That came the next year, in about 1988, with the first federal programs on child care. And in 1996, the law that we have today was basically a part of the reform of the Welfare Act. And it's a remarkable law, in effect, because it involves lots of state flexibility. In other words, what's good for Maryland may not be good for North Carolina. It models our higher education system by letting the money follow the child to the institution that the parent thinks best. These are vouchers. And it gradually has grown to an area where we spend $5 or $6 billion of taxpayers' money each year to provide about 1.5 million children with an opportunity for child care. Let me mention one success story so we can have an example of exactly what we're talking about. I'm thinking of a young mother in Memphis, Tennessee, who was attending LeMoyne-Owen College, earning a business degree. She had an infant child, and so she put that child in a child care center she chose. The voucher through this program that we're talking about today provided about $500 to $600 a month to help pay for that. Infant child care is especially expensive, as if you think about it, you can understand. The success part of the story is that she earned her degree. She's now an assistant manager at Wal-Mart in Memphis. The child who was the infant in the child care center is 5 years old, and she earns enough money to pay all the bill for that child to go to the same child care center, while the money that helped her before is now available to some other mother. So this program encourages work, it encourages job training, and for those Americans who are low income and working, or low income and training or educating themselves for a job, this helps them get that job. So this is an important bill for many, many families. I know in Tennessee we have about 20,000 families affected, nearly 40,000 children. It's a big help to them. It makes a difference in their lives. So I thank Senator Mikulski and Senator Burr for working with this legislation. I know of no two senators in this body who approach issues in a more serious, effective, and determined way. And they also understand that, we, in a body of 100 members where we each have a right to object, that no bill is going to be what any of us would exactly want. For example, I'm leery of the extent of the background checks here, which is one of the major accomplishments of the bill. As a former governor, I'm very skeptical of Washington setting rules for states. But I accept the compromise they've come to. We've talked that through, and I think it's a sound proposal. And I want to congratulate them for the way they've done this over the last 2 years and the way we approach it. And then the conclusion, let me say where I started. We're asking senators to join us in a debate about the Child Care Development Block Grant. What we hope senators will do is come to the floor with their ideas about it. We know of a number of senators who have amendments on both sides of the aisle. What we're saying to those senators is if you have an amendment that's related to our bill, you'll have a chance to talk about it, and you'll have a chance for it to be voted on and perhaps accepted by the full Senate, and then hopefully this bill will go to the House and become a law. We know that hasn't been the story as often as it should be in the Senate, but we'd like to see that happen more often. It requires a little bit of restraint on the part of each of us as senators. We can't all exercise all of our rights all the time and get anything done. It requires some trust and restraint on the part of our leaders, Senator Reid, Senator McConnell. We appreciate them turning the management of the bill over to Senator Mikulski and Senator Burr, with Senator Harkin and I in support of their efforts. And we appreciate the cooperation of the many senators who've already come up with excellent amendments, notified us about them. Senator Burr and Senator Mikulski know about them, and we'll talk about them. So at this stage, Madam President, I'd like to step down and turn the matter over to Senator Mikulski first, and then Senator Burr, and encourage colleagues to come over now. We're continuing through the lunchtime and discuss, debate, talk, and begin voting on the Child Care Development Block Grant reauthorization. Thank you.